e tira forte il vento.
I love Caruso.
Davanti al golfo ti sorride. Un uomo abbraccia una ragazza dopo che aveva pianto. Poi si schiarisce la voce e ricomincia il pianto. Voglio bene assai, ma tanto bene assai. È una catena e scioglie il sangue a vite del vide le luci in mezzo al mare, penso le notti là in America, ma non solo la lampada e la bianca scia di un'elica. Sentì il dolore nella musica, si alzò dal pianoforte, ma quando vide la luna uscire da una nuvola, sembra più dolce anche la musica.
Sorry, I was waiting for the big crescendo. Sorry, guys. Thank you, Carmela. I'm sitting here waiting for the big crescendo, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's a minute and a half, and Teresa's getting carried away with the music. So, hi everybody, it's Friday, and welcome to Ancestral Eyes to all of those who are tuning in and allowing me to space out a little bit. So today is Friday, October the 2nd. It's the first Friday of October. So here we are. And our guest tonight is a friend of mine. She is a psychic medium, and her name is Carmela Zambri Lamanna. Oh, God, I love that name. Carmela, hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
And
thank you for having me over.
Oh, no problem. It was my pleasure. Jean-Jerome C. Baudry, my co-host. Hello and welcome.
Many blessings to everybody joining and tuning in tonight. Hope everybody's safe. We are now in the Witches Month, October 2nd. So, second day of October. That's it. And also a time when the veil between the two worlds is very thin. And gets thinner and thinner across multiple cultures, not just Celtic or Celtic and other, but across multiple cultures, everywhere from Mexico to England to all around the world. So welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're very happy to have our guest, Carmela. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I'm looking forward to what I'm sure will be an exciting show.
Yes, it will. So, Jean-Jerome, can you go ahead and read Carmela's bio, please, before I start the questions?
I will absolutely do that. It'll be my honor and pleasure. So, Ancestral Eyes, episode 24. Here we are. We're very happy to welcome Carmela Zambri Lamanna, spiritual medium. She's an intuitive healer, teacher, coach, speaker, author, and medium. Through all of these titles, it is her deepest wish to provide peace and joy and love through helping people to connect with spirit guidance. This is what connecting with spirit has done for her as well. In her 30s, she found her own spiritual mentor that assisted her in having confidence in the messages that she was already receiving. It has helped her find her center after a challenging childhood that included losing her mother at 8 years of age. Bullying, confusion over her own spiritual gifts. She was introduced to mediumship for the first time when she was given a message from her mother. There was an old man that sat at the entrance of her small town on Monteleone, Italy. He gave messages from spirit to people entering and exiting the town. Carmela was 14 and just about to leave for her new home in Toronto, Canada, when he shared her mother's message with her. It sparked her curiosity and passion to learn more. As she married and raised a family, she learned and studied where she could, but found her true calling when she found her true teacher. With guidance and mentorship, she found her passion for teaching and supporting the growth of those searching for deeper meaning and for their own guidance and sense of connection. For the last 20 plus years, Carmela has done her best to serve the community and those around her with her gifts by offering hands-on healing messages, guiding meditation classes and workshops, speaking on the subject of spiritual work, and guiding students in finding their own path to spirit and mediumship. As an intuitive empath and spirit medium, she is pleased to offer a connection, guidance, and coaching. Her true passion is helping others find their own true connection. She is always looking forward to being of service. And she's had many studies at Daniel Leonard as a shamanic practitioner, with Vera Molinaro, meditation connecting with spirit and energy healing certificate. She has studied Reiki and certified levels 1 and 2. She has studied with Fred Commission, a mediumship platform work, shapeshifting, and studied at Lilydale Assembly, awareness of energy and mediumship. She at the Coaching Federation, certified life coach for Healthy and Wise. And with Elizabeth Larson, Meet the Body Process and Sedona Method at the Medicine Circle, a bear and shamanic energy healing. And I'll put it up later, but if anybody wants to reach Carmela, you can always visit her at her website, www.powerofrisingspirit.com. And without further ado, I turn it over to you, Teresa.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jerome, and thank you, Carmela. I was looking forward to having you on our show. You were one of the first people I thought of when I was doing this show, and I said to Jean-Jerome, at some point in time, we got to get Carmela on here, okay? So here you are tonight. Yay! So, Carmela, I know that sometimes you do your own live show. There was the cooking show that I enjoyed, and you do one with your friend Nancy. It's called Spirited Duo, right?
Yes.
Do you do it once a week?
We do it for now, the first Wednesday of the month and the last Wednesday of the month.
Okay. All right. That's what it is. Okay. So it's I always thought it was like every week or in the summer, and then it seemed like it was every second week or something. But anyway, so I've always tuned in. I always listened to what Carmela had to say, and her friend Nancy too. I really enjoyed the interaction between the two of you and the respect that you showed each other, okay, by allowing each to say their piece and bring forth messages from spirit. So without further ado, I'm going to start the questions. Okay. So my first question is, when and how did your spiritual journey begin? I think it was explained a little bit in the bio, but if you could fill in the gaps a little bit there, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sparked my curiosity because I always had the connection to spirit growing up. As far as I can remember, but you forget as a child because you grow up and you forget, you stuff some stuff down. But we had this old man living in town, and he would sit in front of his house. That was his job. He sat in front of his house, in front of his door. Anybody that came by and somebody who had a message for that person, even if he didn't know you, he would call. Like, let's say you went down to my town, right, and you were walking on the street. He would say, Teresa, come here. I have a message from you, from your grandfather, your father, or whatever. And he will give you the message. And he would take no money whatsoever.
It was just a pure gift from spirit, and that's how he connected.
Yes. And
awesome.
So when he gave me the message, he called me over and he gave me the message from my mom that he said, you know, you are going to Canada, and she wants you to take this, and that with her. And I'm like, okay, oh my God, I'm going. And then I got the papers and I came here, and that stuck with me. So, I was really interested in knowing more. How do you do that, you know?
I'm sure, it's that first link that you have. And as we spoke between the two of us, especially when you're younger, you have the gift. There's that little, those little angels that we had, those little spirit guides or something, the what I used to call my imaginary friends. I know you've had them, so I don't want to spoil anything further in the questions that are coming up. So my second question to you is, we know you're a medium and have been for many years. I'd like to know, how do you practice or connect with the spiritual world? And I'm sure those who tuned in want to know, because each of us as a medium, we kind of do it a little bit different. So what's your daily practice?
I don't have a specific daily practice. I don't.
Okay.
I don't even meditate for the most part.
Okay.
I do, and I sit outside. My meditation is in my kitchen. That's where I get. That's where I get my. I call them downloads. I get my thoughts there. If I ask a question while I'm cooking or while I'm washing the dishes, that question gets answered in my kitchen.
Interesting. I know when we were talking, you had mentioned when you have that connection with spirit, you just mentioned download. Is that sort of like a trance-like state that suddenly overtakes you? Can you describe that for you?
If I have to give a message to someone and spirit comes in, then I go into that trance. If it is just a question and I'm asking, I guess you would say it is a trance, because I'm always one foot here, one foot on the other side. I always say I'm like a cat. I'm like half here, I'm half there. Even when I'm driving, I know I'm driving, but sometimes, like, don't ask me what I just passed, because I don't recall it. And that to me, I am pretty much in an altered state. So a trend, a state of a higher state. I don't know how to explain. How do you explain it to people? It's hard.
I know. It's a sense of, it's a feeling, isn't it? It's like when kind of like when you stare at a flame of a candle and you kind of just sort of tune out and your eyes kind of go, that glazed donut kind of look. And, it's suddenly you start getting all these images, you hear voices, and not because you're possessed, but,
To me, it's more of a sense. I sense a lot.
Do you sense physically?
Yes, I sense physically, and before we started, I could hear the buzzing in my ear, and I know there's tons of them here. My face is starting to go red and hot. That's how I know I'm going into that space where I'm starting to go into that trance. And the other thing that happens to me is I get really, really dehydrated.
And your throat, you get that coughing thing.
Yeah. And my mouth gets really dry. So I have to, gets really pasty. So I have to keep sipping water. I'm told because there's a lot of energy coming through. I'm also being told, and I've experienced this, that my spirit guides are, how should I say, bigger. Bigger is not even a word to explain, but they're higher frequency, like much higher frequency than normal spirit guides for other people. I've had this one experience, which I some of my people know, that I did the very first drumming circle that I held, or and entranced, basically the light language that I used. It was the very first circle that I did in public. And as I'm sitting there, I was sick that time. There was nothing with COVID, but I was sick. And I couldn't cancel that event. I couldn't cancel. They wouldn't let me. So I went in, I called the lady that was holding the space, and I said, I really need your help because this is what's happening. She said, no worry, come in and I'll help you. So she helped me through half of it. And when it came to my turn at the end, I said, well, I need to do this. And all of a sudden, this being stepped behind me, and I could only explain it as a big, huge light behind me. And it was so massive that the people that were sitting beside me felt them. And I said him because it was a him. And when I came home, I got out of my car, my whole body was in pain, which has never happened before. And I walked in and I went to put my foot on the step and my whole leg gave out. Thank God I was holding on to something.
Wow.
And my arms from here to here, they were sore because I was drumming. This one here, because of the energy that was coming through, my arm was sore and my legs, my quad, it felt like I did 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. It was just incredible, the energy that came through. I was blown away.
Wow. Do you have that connection? Do you have that connection often, or is it just that one time? Or
that was just a one time, but it happened a lot more, but not to that big, massive energy feel. So I secretly kind of want some more of that.
It's that kind of high, right?
It is, because it was so, I cannot explain the energy and the feeling. It was just so much love that came through. And it's not the love that we feel like a normal human being. It was just, I can't put it into words, just
uplifting, very uplifting, and it fills you.
It filled me, but it felt lighter, like not like a light, like the light bulb light, but light as in energy wise.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
That was exciting.
Would you say that could have been your main guide? Like, do you believe in a main guide? No? Okay.
No. That was the Holy Trinity that walked in.
Ah, okay. All right. You know, I want to go to one of your drumming circles. I know at some point in time I will, but we'll talk about that. Yeah. So now, you had mentioned also going into the kitchen, and that is sort of your meditative space. And I know when I watched you, you did that show with another medium, and I knew you were in your element. And when I've watched you do some of your cooking things on live on Facebook during this COVID thing, I loved watching you. You had just a natural connection. So I want to talk about that connection. I want to talk about that as your craft, as a natural witch. Okay, because that's how I'm looking at you, as a natural kitchen witch in a sense, and that's your craft, but there's a lot more to that. So could you expand on that? There's that natural witchiness about you.
Well, for me, it started, like I said to you before, I was born and raised with the earth. You know, back home, I was born in a farm. I was not even born in the town. I was born in the way to the town back then, because they had, you know, my parents had a farm back home, and to get to town, it was quite a bit of walking. And so I was raised with the earth. I was raised with the trees. I was raised with the grass. I was raised with, you know, talking to the trees. Because I would go out and take care of my sheep, right? You have to watch the sheep because you didn't want the wolves or anybody else to take them. So I would go and sit with them, and I would talk to them, and I would talk to all the animals I always had around. I had my dogs around. I had, the lucertole, we used to call them, which is the green lizard. I would see them and I would play with them, and the grasshopper, I would pick up and play with them. So I grew up with all earth, right?
Nature was your playground.
It was. And a lot of times for me, my mom used to say, okay, go pick this, go pick, she would send me to pick up wild herbs. And we used to feed them to the animals because if they were sick, they needed this specific herb. And if we were sick, we needed this specific herb. I remember when we had the turkeys, when the baby turkeys are born, you have to feed them a certain herb that you can't pick with your bare hands. You have to have gloves to pick them. And then you have to cook them and give it to them. And that's the only herb that they're eating. So there's a specific thing. In natural medicine, it's natural. It comes from the earth. That's the best medicine that we can have. So even to this day, for me, the herbs are, it's just natural to me.
Yeah. And you're a natural in the kitchen. I know, just watching you. I love watching your hands, like when you're making something, when you had been baking bread and it's like, God, one day I'm going to go to Carmela's house and she's going to feed me one of her really good meals. Because honestly, I would just sit there and my mouth would water just
You'll have to get in line. I have a lineup. I do.
I know you would. Of course you would.
I love cooking. And the thing is, nobody taught me how to cook because my mom passed away so early. I didn't know how to cook. But I will open the fridge and I'm like, okay, I need this, I need that, and I make a meal. And people are, like just surprised because how do you know that goes with that? I don't know, but I have my helpers, which is my grandmother who's always with me.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's probably either your grandmother or your mother that's intervening, definitely, for sure. Now, there was something that I wanted to talk about because when we had our private conversation, we started talking about this, and you had mentioned speaking in tongues. And I found that very fascinating because we started speaking about, I had my own language, so to speak, but that was my language with my spirit. So could you sort of elaborate on your speaking in tongues?
Well, when I was a little girl, like I said before, I would go and take care of my sheep and I would pretend that they were my audience, funny enough. And and I would either sing to them or I would present to them. And a lot of the times I would find myself speaking a different language. And, sometimes my parents would say, well, what did you just say? What is that? What are you saying? Why are you mumbling? But it wasn't mumbling. To me, it was a different language. It was my mother language, and it took a while to get that back because just like anything else, we have to go through different teachings, different healings, different
just to make that circle come back, right?
Yeah,
to get reacquainted with ourselves. No, definitely. I enjoyed that conversation because I know you and I had spoken about that. I used to do it all the time, and my mom would always laugh at me, right? I'm sure my sister and a few other people did if they ever heard me. So my fourth question to you, again, during our private conversation, we touched upon ancestral teachings. Can you talk about some of those teachings? That we talked about spiritual advice you received, but there's one thing in specific that we had talked about, the rusty nails, and these are things that just come to you. This is like ancestral teachings. So could you kind of explain that to me? I found that was very fascinating.
Well, for me, again, it's the thing that if I need some information, I will ask the question, and not necessarily it will come right away. But again, it comes to me
Mm-hmm.
when I am least expecting it, and when I'm in the kitchen again. They'll
Mm-hmm.
give me one word, and like this, I ask for protection for something, and
Mm-hmm.
they said rusty nail. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with rusty nail?
Yeah.
So they just give me a little bit, and then I have to kind of keep asking, or I have to
Mm-hmm.
research, and then the will come.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, let's call it spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
to me is a learning process, and it's a patient process.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything is black and white. Not everything is in full color either. And
No.
it takes a lot of practice, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
patience, and
Mm-hmm.
we have to really trust what we get. We have to trust it. For me, is what
Absolutely.
I've learned with the body process that I've done is I've learned to ask that question when I hear something. I have to feel into like my body. How is
Mm-hmm.
that? Is that right? Is that wrong? Is there a good thing or is there a bad thing? Because my body will tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody will go through this. And if you know your body, your body will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're under stress, what does happen to your body? Your body gets tensed up, right? It gets
Right.
tight. And
Right.
that to me, when I get that tense, it's a no. When
Ah.
I ask a
Mm-hmm.
question and it just flows, it just relaxes, just flows.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
natural. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that is the right thing. For me is when I ask a question about, even when I talk to people, I know right
Right.
away because I get that tense in my body, like my whole body inside is like this. And it's like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
okay, there's something wrong here. There's something, and then
Mm-hmm.
I give the people benefit of their doubt because, I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going through stuff.
Yeah.
And then usually my gut is always right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, trusting your intuition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you really have a sense of the physical. Like, would you say that you're more of a physical medium in the sense that you feel a lot more things throughout your body, or do you hear, or do you see? Like,
I,
what's your
I
strongest gift, do you think?
it's a whole different package. I don't have one modality specifically. It depends
Mm-hmm.
on what they want me to know, how they want me to
Mm-hmm.
know it. I think for me, being a medium or being a healer,
Mm-hmm.
um, for me, I prefer call it working with energy because everything is energy. We are energy. Everything is energy.
Absolutely.
When
Yeah.
we work with energy, we have to know. You have to talk to the wind. You have to talk to the fire. You have to talk to the
Mm-hmm.
water. You have to talk to the air. You have to talk to ether. And all
Mm-hmm.
of that brings messages. They give you insight. And if you're connected, then you'll know.
You have a very strong connection to the natural world. Do you think that helped form a balance within yourself, like that universal law we had spoken about, balance and duality? You have a very strong sense of that. Could you tell us a little bit about that? How does that feel for you, or how do you sense that? Like, because we had talked about, getting messages, and some people are not comfortable with hearing truth, right?
Nobody wants to hear the truth. Nobody wants to hear the real truth. If somebody comes to you, there are some people who want to hear the truth, but not too many people want to hear the real truth. And I'm not talking about the truth about, like, if you're coming to me and say, oh, you know what, you're going to get into an accident. I'm not going to say that to you. I will be very
Mhm.
gentle with saying that, please be careful
Be
when you
careful.
drive and stuff like that. But I mean, let's say if you're saying to me, well, am I going to find, am I going to get $1 million? I'm not going to sweet talk it to you. I'm not going to say, yeah, put it out there and be positive about it. No, if you're not going to get it, it's not in your cards. I'm going to say, no, it's not coming.
No.
Sorry.
No.
I'm disappointed. Sorry, but you're not getting it.
And-
I had a friend of mine who was asking, well, I'm going to get, other people are telling me I'm going to have a man walking in. I'm like, no, you're not. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not ready for it. And they're like, but I am. No, you're not. And it's that underneath energy that I connect with. And I can't explain it in.
It's an underlying current. You kind of know. You just kind of have to know, right? And sometimes I think people have expectations of us mediums that it always has to come from dead people or someone that's passed in their life, and it's like no, not necessarily. When you're in tune with spirit will speak, and it'll come from your own guides, that person's guides, their angels. Absolutely. And this is what people find is very hard for them to understand when they come to a medium to get a spiritual reading. It's not always about information from the dead and what they want to hear. They want to hear that it's a message from their dead grandmother or a message from here or something that they're hoping to get, You can't sugarcoat these things, you say how it is.
My teacher, and that's why I love her and I call her my mama, because my teacher always taught us, if you go to a medium and they start asking you 50,000 questions,
walk away.
Run. Run.
Walk away, run.
She said run. Run. Don't turn back. And if they tell you, oh, I need this much money because you have this and I have to take it off you or I have to do this, but I need this much money up front, run. The same thing. Don't turn back. To me, it's a very fine line. And you have in every place, every work, every ethnic, you have the con artist.
Yes, you do. You do.
Absolutely.
And so you have to be very discerning and listen to your body.
And I always look at it this way. To me, when someone comes, they want a message. Don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. I want to tell you. Please don't lead me there, because as soon as you start to try to get me to say, oh, I thought you'd connect me with my deceased husband, it's like, he's not coming through. This is what's coming through. It's like, I don't want to know a thing, and that's the best way to go, because it's pure spirit. It's pure.
It's the same thing with Ifa. I mean, the only thing I get is the name and the date of birth. That's it.
Yeah.
And I say, when a person starts to say, I can't edit it, I say, stop. Don't say anything more.
Yeah.
Let Ifa speak. Let Ifa speak. Then we can talk about it. Let Ifa speak.
Absolutely. First. I do the same thing. It's like, don't tell me. Don't tell me.
I usually do the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to know. If you want a message from me, this is how much, this is the long time. I normally say that, but I always go over way over. I have to really start to, I've been told
reel it in.
Take to the time, and I'm like, but they need more, so I'm good with that. If they need 2 hours, why not? It's okay, because that's the role I signed up for. That's what I signed up for. So I'm not going to put the alarm and have it 45 minutes and just go with it, I
think also the other thing that that I found interesting when I went to Lilydale, and I had taken a course there. I was there for a week, and it was on spiritual development. I went there more for transcendental meditation, and I ended up having to take all the rest of the stuff that went with it. And they really have a system, okay, where you have to work it, because they want their mediums to talk to the dead and talk to the dead only. And I found it was like, okay, so I'm bringing forth the dead, you kind of put yourself in that mode, and okay, they'll come forward. But at some point too, those dead people are there to tell you the exact same message that the spirits that are around them. And those spirits are not necessarily, again, their deceased loved ones. These are guides that have decided to walk with you on your journey. And this I found was very hard. For me in Lilydale, it was always about connecting with the dead. Always just, let's just do it, and I found that very kind of fake, because they really want their mediums to stand there, give a message, and then it's like, okay, done with that person, next, and then all you're doing is just, and that is so common with a lot of these and I'm not putting them down, the John Edwards and all of those that bring forth those kind of messages, and they're comforting for those that want to get those messages. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of like a studio production almost, is how I look at it. What's your take on that?
I didn't take that you took. I went there and connected with the same mediumship. That my mediumship experience was different. My memory, again, it was me. These things always happen to me. And we were in the circle, and she said, okay, you guys are in. She took us to a meditation, and she said, now I want you to open your eyes, and I want you to walk outside and go to the woods, and I want you to connect with the woods and look at the colors and the difference. When you see it with your eyes open, regular, or when you're in a trance meditation and you walk outside and you see the different colors, you see the different hues on the leaves, or even on the grass and all of that. So that's what I remember, because that's what we did. So again, we were connecting again to the outside, to the natural world, right? To the herb and the trees and the air and all of that.
So you took something a little bit different. Like I said, I went into this knowing that I had to take part of this other formula type of, mediumship training, so to speak, right? And Lilydale is wonderful because it is an environment for spiritualists and for those that are mediums. And there's so many ways to connect, and they have so many courses and workshops. It's a wonderful place. It really is. And I love the feeling. I like going there. It is full of spirits. Okay. All the past mediums that have lived there, you can feel them. Okay. It's just one of those places where you walk in and it's funny. It's almost like you're home.
Yeah.
It's
a complete, if anybody has not experienced it, I would say, please go. Take your time and go there and connect with that, because it's not all about the workshops that they're holding or the speakers that are there. To me, it's about the energy that lives in that little community. It's a little community. And it's, I took my daughter there. My older daughter wanted to go with me one time, so I did. And she's same thing. She's like, "What do you do there?" And I'm like, "Nothing. We just walk around." And so when she went there, she's like, "Oh my God!" She goes, "It's so nice."
Yeah.
And then calm, it's relaxing.
Yeah. And the other mediums that you meet there too, you know, I was fortunate to meet some very wonderful people. A lot of people came there on courses like me and that, but we actually got to know a few of the resident mediums that live there as well in that community. And they're very incredible people. They're very supportive. I found them very open too, you know, not at all what I expected. It really is an experience. And I think for any medium, new or old, you know, budding or experienced, if you haven't had a chance to go, definitely go to Lilydale. I think it's an experience because they have the one in New York, just outside of Buffalo, and then they have their winter residence, which is in Florida. So there's two places.
Oh, I don't know that one there. I know the one in New York.
Yeah,
outside
in New York State. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one I was familiar with.
But the place that I want to go is in Italy. They have a town that it's all witches, and they celebrate just the witches. I don't
Not
remember.
Salem.
I will Google it. And I
Italy,
will,
Italy.
Yes.
Oh, in Italy.
In Italy, she's saying in Italy.
In Italy.
Oh,
They
sorry, I missed that.
a town that is only witches and muggles, you know, male witches. And they live there, and they still do to this day the traditions, the
In
same.
what part of Italy? In what part of Italy?
I believe it's in the north. I'm not sure, but I will find out, and I will pass
Yeah,
along
let us know.
to you guys. And it's
Perfect.
there's a little video on YouTube that we watched with my friend, and we both said we need to go there because one time of the year, the whole month, they celebrate and they really dress the whole town into like all these amazing costumes and stuff, and it's so nice. That's where I want to go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I've never heard about it. So definitely, I would love to. Go
Now,
ahead, Jean-Jerome.
in that town, do they refer to it as strega or stregonaria?
They you call them strega, yes.
Strega.
Okay.
There is many names, you know. There is a stregoneria. There is the fattucchiera. There is the I forgot. Not the nonna. There is another name for it, but there is many names to describe what these elders, older people do, because that's what they do. They get together and, you know, they share their information. But it's all hush hush. They don't share with everybody. They
just
share
gonna
with
say.
just a few people that they know, right?
Okay.
Because nothing is written, nothing is shared with stranieri, you know, with strangers.
Right.
It's kept under wrap.
Okay.
Because
And
they don't
do you think it's only shared with family, other family members or so?
They're shared with family members or with really, really close friends that they really trust. And the reason why is because they don't want that to be used against them.
Right, right.
So they don't
Right.
share their modalities. They don't share their knowledge with somebody because each one of them will have a different thing. Use that same, let's say the salt. You know, with the salt, there's so much that you can do with salt, but not everybody knows. You know, most people use it for cooking or for cleaning or for preserving, but the salt has a lot more to
Oomph to it.
yeah.
You can do a lot. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, I know with yourself as a medium, we touched upon your doing drumming. You also hold other workshops. What sort of workshops do you hold? And is there anyone that's coming up in particular?
Right now, I'm not doing any because with the COVID, we can't really get together. But for me, I love to bring people together to share, to lift their spirits and connect with spirits and teaching them how to connect with spirits, how to connect to your own body and listen to your own body. You know, finding out, like what just said, when you ask a question, does it feel good in your body? Most people don't even pay attention to that.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
So there is different aspect that we go through, and we have gone through so much in our life that each milestone or each trauma leaves leaves a stamp in our
A
body,
residual energy within you.
a piece of dust. You know,
Yeah.
so connecting with that piece of dust and clearing it in whatever modality they're giving me, because I use different modalities. Like I said, I don't use one modality.
Right.
I use Spare the Moment because each one of us is completely different. You know,
Right.
you can connect. Let's say you can connect with the light, with the fire, with a candle. Jean-Jerome will connect with the water. So whatever modality works for you is not going to work for Jean-Jerome. So they already know that. So they're giving me, okay, you're going to use this on him and you're going to use this on her. So when I do a workshop, I prefer either one-on-one or a very small group, no more than 10, because to me is more intimate. And you can take the time because each one can share the power of being heard and the power of being seen, not only by a woman, but you know, if you're a man and you come into these workshops too, it's amazing, because we are, a lot of the times we're not truly heard and not truly seen.
No. And it's good to hear that, you know, because I think, if anything, COVID's really taught us that we can go beyond our physical selves and still deliver messages, but there's still something to be said, like you said, to be seen and to be heard. And for me, again, it's that physical one-on-one where you can really, really feel the energy of another person in front of you. And when you do that exchange between the two of you, especially when you're learning about energies. I know one of my mentors as a witch was very much a very physical person, and his teaching was all the physical. And when I'm talking about physical, I'm not talking about touching. I'm talking about sending energy to me, and me picking it up and describing it and going, whoa, and then turning it around and throwing it back to him. And there was that, whoa, you know, I assign a sound to it, whoa, 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 you know, kind of energy back and forth, right? That's when you know you're creating that, you and that other person connecting. That's that invisible energy. That's that magic. That.
And a lot of times too, I do that. Well, if we go for a walk with some, you know, if I go for a walk with a client or if I go for a walk with a friend, all of a sudden I will stop and I'll say, okay, there's a tree. What is it telling you? Go feel it. What does it like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Because we all have, there's a signature of energy with a rock, a crystal, or, you know, most of the things that we use now, this is the thing. Most of the tools that we use, they're tools. And not necessarily the crystal is better than a rock that you find on the floor. You know, for me, like I said, I'm going back home again and hearing all these stories that I used to hear and putting together, and now coming here and learning the other side of that spiritual practice. It really opened my mind and opened my eyes to so many different things. And we have to honor, everything has duality, everything. The trees have duality, you know, the animals have duality, we have duality.
Absolutely. It's that duality, it's that balance. These are universal laws, and we touched upon that in our private conversation, that, you know, we can't discount at all. you know.
And in my opinion, you do something to someone, it will come back to you. So always, and these were the teachings of my dad when I was little. He would say to us, whatever you do to someone, it will come back to you. So you make sure that you don't do anything stupid or bad for just doing it. If somebody's harming you, then you are protecting yourself. You're doing something to protect yourself. But you are not doing something just because you want to do something, you want to do harm. He would say to us, if I find out that you are doing harm to someone, I will let you stay in jail. Don't count on me and coming and taking you out of jail. But if you have been harmed and you have protected yourself, and let's say you have killed someone, I will come out next day and take you out that same day if I can. Because you have protected yourself. So
you're defending yourself, and you have every right to, it's a little bit of the eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, I think that's important to understand, and don't, and as I always say, don't let any religions tell you that you shouldn't or turn the other cheek. There's only so much you can take as a welcoming mat, or someone to wipe their feet on you. I'm not saying you have to go out there and harm anyone all the time or anything like that, but definitely don't be anyone's fool.
Exactly. But use your discernment again, and use that balance, use that duality for your own. You have to be aware of it. That is there, not ignorant to it, and spending the light and be the light for others, but know when to put that, that stop if someone is doing harm to you. Not necessarily going to harm them, because that's not my nature. I wouldn't harm somebody, but I would put a stop to it. I always said, because my totem is a bear, and I always say, don't poke the bear. You can poke them a little bit. Don't poke the bear.
Absolutely. And Carmela, that's what I liked about you, because I know there's a lot of people in the industry, shall we say, that very that embrace that new age kind of, and I've said this so many times, that going after the light, and I find that so unrealistic. And the thing that I was always impressed by you is your sense of understanding what the light is and understanding shadow work and the dark side. And that's something I wanted to hear. No, don't laugh, Jean-Jerome. I know you're laughing at me. He always laughs at me when I talk. But seriously, Carmela, that's the one thing. And you said something once. I tuned into one of your shows and you said something about that. Do you remember, or it's kind of part of your philosophy? Tell me.
I don't remember, but no, it's true. There is always, we have to know both sides, and you can't just turn the head and face this, because you have to acknowledge the other side. And growing up, like I said, my dad would sit around the fire afterwards. We would eat at dusk and we would sit around the fire, and he would tell us stories. But not only telling the stories, I was witness of things that happened to people. Let's say we had a horse. This is a story. It's a true story. And we had a horse. We had a few horses, but there was a house next to our farm, and there was only a husband and a wife. They didn't have children. And my father got into a fight with them. And my father called her a witch. Said, I know you're a witch. And the next night, we could hear a commotion into the horse stall, because it was attached to our house, to the house where we slept in. And my dad went there, and anybody that has the horses has experienced these. You find a horse sweat, and it has a braid in the mane. Never take that braid off. Especially if you're an Italian, never take the braid off if you find a braid on a horse. Dry the horse and let him be. Don't instigate anything. But my dad was very stubborn. God bless him. And he said, I'm going to catch you. And one night he went quietly. He heard the noise. He went quietly. He had a knife and he stuck the knife on the door. He opened the door because I got you. And he said it was the size of a cat sitting on top of the horse. It was furry. And she turned around and hissed at him and said, I'm going to kill your horse because you caught me. I'm going to kill your horse. And sure enough, within a month, the horse wasn't eating, couldn't get up anymore because she would ride the horse all night. She would ride the spirit of the horse all night. And in the morning, we would find braids upon braids upon braids upon braids. And the horse was drenched in water, like because it was so sweat. And she killed the horse.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just one story, you know. So how can you say, oh, no, that doesn't exist? When I've seen it, I was 6, 7 years old. And I remember that. You know, I also remember saying when people, and even to this day, even here, people know that. Never buy a house in a four corner. Never stand at a four corner at midnight. Never stand there at a four corner at midnight.
Unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Unless you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
So, if you see a babalao at 4 quarters at midnight, run.
Yeah. Take off and run the other way.
Run.
We had a stretch of road back home. And at one point there was a fork on the road. And the other part was open, was just one road. But there was so many deaths on that piece of road. And every time if you walk there between 12 to 1 o'clock, you would see them walk on that road. You would see the spirits, the souls walk on that road.
Wow.
A couple of friends of mine have seen them. I always wanted to see one, but I never did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to see them, so they never showed themselves to me. But that was the thing. I have another story that my friend told me. She was Portuguese, and she said her mom had a long braid, and she woke up one morning and somebody had cut her hair, and the braid was still on the pillow. And the next day at night, she happened to walk on the street, and I'm not sure if it was at a corner or something. She said she saw a lady, she had a hood on, black, dressed in black, and the lady looked up, took a little bit off. She goes, next time will be your head. And she walked away. And she knew who this lady was. She knew she was a witch. And she said she never talked to her. She stopped all communication with this lady. She stopped talking about her to everybody. You know, when we talk about magic, people think it's fun. You know, people think it's fun. Oh, we're going to double in magic. Yeah. If you know what you're doing, you have to really, really, really be careful because it can come back and bite you in the what? You know, there is so much that the new age spiritual does not understand.
Absolutely not. They're so caught up with the white light and energy that they blind themselves.
Well, the true shamans, the true babalao, the true witches, the true stegas, they know that, and they don't harm anyone. They don't. You know?
Why
would we? You know, unless you're coming after us, right?
No, and what you said as well earlier, that as your even your father had told you, and it was a common knowledge. Everything in life has a balance, right? If you take a life,
Yes.
the universe will claim a life. So you
Yeah.
have to be very careful. Like there are people I've had that, sometimes they're desperate. I want to, because they're emotionally,
Mhm.
despondent, and they're upset. I really want to do this. I want to do something. I say, no, you can't do that,
No.
because
It
if
takes
you do
skill.
that, it has a price, and you're not going to be ready to the price, because the price won't be what you want.
That's
The
Mhm.
right.
price will be what you most love, or what is most dear to you,
That's
Mhm.
right.
right? So don't
Mhm.
play with what you don't understand, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's
Absolutely.
what the new age, let's call it the new age spiritual. We are all spiritual. We are all connected, every single one of us, whether you know it or not. We all have that connection to spirit, to the spirit world. I said once when I started doing my speech at my speaking at church here, um, one of my first lecture was, I am a piece of God. I am a piece of him. I
Mhm.
have his light in my heart. That's
Mhm.
who I am. I,
Absolutely. We all are. We're
and
part of the divine spark.
I was told I couldn't say that because I was not God. I'm like, but I didn't say I was God. I said, I am a piece of him. I am part of him.
Who told you
Mhm.
you couldn't say that?
Oh.
No, I'm
So,
saying, but like somebody.
Priest?
the person who was running the show, let's call it.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. They said, no, you can't say that because by you saying that, you're saying you're God. I'm like, but I'm not. I'm
no.
part of him. You
Yeah.
know, you have to go sometimes. You just have to step away and say, okay, well, thank you, and step away, right?
Mm.
Because your belief is
Mhm.
not their belief. That doesn't make it wrong or right. I always
Absolutely.
say this, and it's never wrong or right. It just is.
Yeah. It just is, exactly. And that's something that I've always admired about you, Carmela, is you're straightforward, to the point, and your messages, unlike, some people we mutually have known, come across, that aren't. Let's just say that.
They
Right?
try. They try too hard.
Could be, yeah. Yeah.
Try too
Yeah.
hard. They're either
Yeah.
trying too hard or they're in for the money. One of the two.
I was just going to say, or this plays a
Or both.
lot more, Yeah, or both.
That's true too.
No, for sure. So I'm kind of done my questions, and unless something else kind of sparks me to talk or to mention, I'm gonna see what Jean-Jerome has, and if there's anybody who wants to ask any questions as well from our audience who's tuning in. Jean-Jerome.
Okay. Well, I've been taking notes, so I have a
Oh,
few
good boy.
questions. Corollary questions.
Yeah, oh boy, for real.
I'm a good student. I take notes. Um,
I'm gonna be grilled.
now the question
You
starts.
thought I was the hard one. Everybody thinks that. It's him.
Yeah.
That sweet
Uh,
baby face. That guy there.
Well, like I said before, when we first set up this appointment, the night before, he came to visit, and we did the meeting
Right.
prior.
Yeah, that's right.
we'll talk about that one actually. Um, uh,
Mm.
quick, we could tell you stories about that, but question. You mentioned something about, in terms of the different modalities, the different ways that you perceive or you see, or that messages are presented to you. One thing you mentioned was a physical reaction. Now,
Mm.
is that physical reaction a like a warning that something's not right with this person? This person poses a threat, or like some mediums where they feel sometimes the way the message is presented by the spirit is by allowing them almost a transference of the pain or the feeling or the sensation from the person to you. So, for instance, if a person has a sore leg, right, they haven't told you anything, or suffers from a sore leg, all of a sudden your leg goes a little bit limp or numb. Is that what you were referring to? Is it the first or both?
Well, I used to, in the beginning, that's what I used to do. I used to absorb the other person, my client's pain, until I put a stop to it, because I couldn't do that no more. All of a sudden my body was completely in pain every day, and I didn't know, that it wasn't mine. So I've learned to ask when I have a client come and then they leave, and all of a sudden I have a feeling that, let's say, a leg that's hurting or my back that's hurting, and I'll ask, is this mine or it's not, or is somebody else's? And I will get the answer, and then I can do accordingly to what the answer is. If it's somebody else's, then I'll send it out. I don't send it back to them, but I'll send it out into the universe to be transmuted. But I also get the feeling of, if I'm talking to someone who is also another medium or also another person that I'm supposed to do work with, I get their feeling like, are they strong? Are they weak? Are they truth? Or are they hiding stuff? And like I can tell that. And like I can say to you, you're really strong. You're very strong. Jean-Jerome is very strong. He's the big dude.
You're very sweet. You're very sweet.
No, but that's what I feel. I feel you are a strong soul. I call, you are a strong individual. Not in the physical, although you are strong in the physical, but I mean in the spiritual world, your spirit side is strong. Is someone who knows what they're doing, is someone who you don't mess with, is someone who will tell you the truth or not. And it will do the work that needs to be done.
That's Jean-Jerome. That is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very sweet. So thank you.
A question now, in terms of seeing, we talked about, you hinted at, and Teresa sort of echoed or reinforced that concept about beyond when people, and we actually have another show tomorrow with Bokono Daniel Dafoji, who's a priest of Vodou, and is tomorrow night in Spanish on the show Despertar Ancestral. Which will touch a little bit upon this, is actually scheduled for tomorrow. But beside the spirit of the dead, the spirit of past relatives, deceased relatives, and everything else, you mentioned at the beginning you touched upon a being, a very tall being of infinite light, or very, very powerful, very presence. So there are two questions. In terms of your interactions, if you're able to say, if you cannot say, or if you prefer not to say, we'll respect that. But just as a general question, would you say that in the course of doing your healing work, in the course of doing your mediumship work, that you connect relatively often with other entities, other spirits that are not human, let's say, or not like ancestors or deceased? Or is it is it something, as you said, like that one appearance which was definitely not human in a sense because of its presence and everything, you defined it as a presence, or the spirit of the Trinity, as an example? You gave it that label. But what other labels, if you're liberty to say, would you use? In other words, from what cosmology? Because when you say Trinity, most people would associate a Catholic or Christian sort of view of the universe, view of the spirit world. But is that really the frame, or do you see spirits from other currents? Let's call them spiritual currents, and so forth.
It has a lot of answers to that question from my past experiences. So the Holy Trinity, first I want to answer that, to me is a being that is composed of the Holy Father being in the God, Father, Mother, and Child, basically. The whole being that comes down. So it's not just one, but it's the whole. That's to be the whole Trinity. It's the three. And you can say it however you want. When we do the front, not necessarily has to be Catholic, but it's the me, myself, and I type of
so to
thing.
speak.
It's the whole. It's the whole. The other thing the other beings I have been in communication with and I've seen is my galactic family. When I was in Mount Shasta,
Yes.
I had that experience. We all had that experience. There were three of us, and all three of us pretty much had the same experience. We were going up the mountain, and I was told before I went there, do not walk ahead by myself. Stick with the people that I went with. Do not veer off, because it is known that you don't come back from there. And so when I was there, we were walking up and we said, wouldn't it be fun if we call the people?
Oh, the screen froze.
Her screen froze. It could be a connection, but we'll give her a moment, because we had during our screen test we had this issue.
Right. That's right. So it might be her whatchamacallit, her connection, definitely. Just when we were getting to the good part.
That might be those beings.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say
That might be those beings. You can't say anymore. Stop right there. It's funny because it happened right there, right where she was about to say that.
And they land, and she's gone. Oh no!
She'll reconnect. Don't worry. We had this. At least we. That's why we do everybody who's doing. That's why we do studio tests, because we judge everybody's internet connection and environment. So we had this type of scenario at one point during our studio test. So we know that there's some peculiarity about the connection at Carmela's house. So we're just going to give her a moment, and usually her internet or connection comes back.
Absolutely.
Well, that was funny.
I know. I was going to say, because I know when and I forgot to mention the Mount Shasta, and I thought I wanted to say that later at some point in time. So I'm glad you asked her those questions, because she got a chance to talk about that, because I found the story very fascinating, her whole trip up there. And then that started that whole conversation between her and I, and a not a mutual friend, but a friend I have with another friend of mine, who I don't believe in aliens, so to speak. I know there's other people that do. I do believe that we're not alone in this universe as humans. But there was one person I had met years ago, and this woman, as hopefully when Carmela comes back, she'll talk about the different beings. And this woman in particular that I knew, very pale, blonde hair, blue eyes, and her eyes, and I've never met anybody that had eyes that were not completely round. I know this sounds weird, but even her eyes, the irises in her eyes, they looked like little motherboards. Okay, very interesting eyes. And she was a very interesting person, not grounded, and yet there was a peculiarity about her that I found very fascinating, and yet didn't bother me at all. But when I focused in on her eyes, that was the thing that got me. They weren't really round. I know that sounds weird, but they were kind of
Yeah, there we are.
square.
Sorry.
No worries. We knew to expect it.
We knew
We
this
had
was
that
going to
scene
happen.
during the video.
Mhm.
We told everybody, stay tuned. We know this may happen, and she will be back with us shortly.
Yeah.
we
The
were just
aliens
laughing.
took her, and the aliens took her and brought her back. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
We were just laughing because it was just when you were about to tell that story.
Yes. Yep. Maybe they don't want me to talk about it. No, so I was saying that we were in Mount Shasta, and then we were going up. We started asking how fun would it be if we invite them in. And as we got to the top of the mountain, there's a certain way you can't go past the tree line. Everybody will tell you, don't go past the tree line. So we got to the top, and all of a sudden there were these 3 trees in a triangle. And each one of us put our back towards the tree, and we start asking them to come in. And we start feeling this warm wind come. And the next one was cool. The next wave was hot. The next wave was cool. And all of a sudden, these 3 people, beings showed up.
Mhm.
And one, I could only see the bottom of it because he was massive and tall. And it had a white color to it. I didn't see the feet, but it was just sort of like just a light. The next one was a female, and I can still see her picture to this day. She had a veil, but it was like a baby blue powder veil, and her skin was so pure, like clear and light, and she was blonde, and she had this thing sitting almost like a crystal here, like around, and with a veil, and she had long blonde hair. And then there was another one who stayed a little bit back, but the 2 main ones were up front. So that was my first encounter with my galactic family, basically, that I've had.
And when you say galactic family, do you use the term in a sort of a generic sense, or do you mean specifically you felt there was a connection spiritually with this apparition, the spirits you saw?
At the moment, there was shock, to be honest. And the next day we were talking about, oh my God, can we, like as we all do, we go through an experience, and then we sit back and like, oh my God, can you believe I had this experience? Did you see that? Did you feel that?
Can you see that?
Yeah, there was this feel, and there was this feel that when we were standing also underneath us, there was this massive library. And there were tons of books and tons of things. And you could go through this door, and you had to be careful not to go through that door because otherwise you wouldn't come back. But I have pictures because I'm a picture taker. I constantly snap pictures. I cut amazing things on my camera. And there are actually a couple of pictures that you can see. It's almost like it's like a rainbow light through the trees, and there's a few of them, and then there's one, it's like a capsule, and it's like shooting fire almost from the bottom, and it's going up. It's amazing. I have it, saved it. I never had it realized by anyone, but we went to a friend of my friend who's a shaman, and the guy that she rented a house with, he works with ETs a lot. And he came in, and he sat there, and we was talking, and we were asking, how do you know? How do you know these people are real? How do you know?
Yeah.
And he turned to me, and he said to me, he goes, what would you say if I called you this name? And he called me Andromedan. He goes, how would you what would you say if I called you Andromedan? Or if I said the word Andromedan? I felt this heat go from the bottom of my feet and through my head, sweating, and I wanted to go hide. I didn't know where to go hide, but I'm like, how did you know? In my head, I was like,
Yeah.
how did you know? How dare you? I was kind of angry a little bit about it, but I said to him, I said, I don't know. I never heard that word. And I never heard that word before. And I came home and I Googled it.
Right.
And sure enough, there's a galaxy. There's a galaxy called Andromeda.
It's the closest
That's right.
galaxy to our own. Andromeda is the closest. Andromeda, the Andromeda galaxy is the closest one to the Milky Way, to our own galaxy.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the closest proximity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there is a few of us here, and there's a reason why we're here. Like all of us. You know, to me, we all come from a different place. We all experienced in many lifetimes in many different places, not only on Earth, but we've done different galaxies. We've come in many colors. You know, our skin color wasn't just white once, you know, and that's it. We experienced
100%.
Yeah. To me, as I came, you know, in a different skin to experience how that culture lives, how that culture feels, what they go through. And then I came back into another culture, and how did that culture, I came back, you know, many times as a different male, female. I know I've experienced many lifetimes as a native and indigenous, you know, because I'm called to that culture. Like, I didn't choose it. It chose me in this lifetime. You know, I'm so drawn to it. So.
No, absolutely. I definitely understand what you're talking about. It's interesting because I was saying to Jean-Jerome, while you were off, I was telling him about that experience that I had with this friend who, you know, the one with the eyes that weren't round, they were squared. I know it was the oddest thing. And I kept looking at her eyes thinking, those are contacts, right? You know, and she caught me and she said, I know you're looking at my eyes. And I'm going, yeah, I am. I go, what's up with your eyes? And she said, that's the way they are. She goes, because I really do believe that I'm not from here. She goes, I've always known that, you know. That was the first time I've ever come into contact with someone who was so sure of herself not being of this earth that I was surprised. I just took it in stride and just accepted it. And we maintained a communication for a little while, and then we kind of sort of drifted off, you know, like sometimes that happens with people, right? But just before I was moving up here, out of the blue, she contacted me and said, hey, you know, Teresa, she emailed me. I mean, like, goes to show you how long that's been, right? But she emailed me and wanted to know how I was doing. And she said, you know, she goes, I felt compelled to get in contact with you. She said, so what's new? And when I told her I was leaving, she goes, I knew that. And she said, well, you never know. She goes, our path might cross again. And I said, yeah. And I was okay with that, you know, and I'm the one who's the most skeptic when it comes to things like that, even though, like I said before, I do believe we're not the only ones in this universe. Okay.
If you go to Italy, there is, especially in Sicily, there's a lot of Venus people there.
Yes. And you were saying.
There's also another, if you go on YouTube and you Google Paola Harris, she does an interview with an older gentleman in Italy. There was, I'm not sure if there still is, I'm pretty sure there still is. They don't talk about it now, but there is a project in Italy. It's called Amicizia Projects, and it's with the ETs.
Interesting.
There's an old man who worked with ETs, and they're still up north somewhere that they're still doing it. It's not in a cave somewhere that they're doing it.
Isn't that kind of interesting that the witches are up north in northern Italy, and so are these people with the ETs? Is there something that we don't know? Mela?
There's a lot of mountains. There's a lot of mountains up north.
Well, like this is up a whole, like they say, we have a lot of in Spanish we say mucha tela que cortar. We have a lot of material to cut with this because it opens up a huge discussion. So for the average person, I think within Ifa or Isa or many spiritual beliefs, there, sometimes the topic of when you switch or talk about alien or from other planets, people sometimes they doesn't it's not part of their vernacular. It's not part of their language. There's suspicious to it. There are aspects they don't believe. Myself, I have to in terms of that statement, probably earlier on, I would have to count myself as one of them, because within Ifa we don't talk about concepts of alien and alien spiritualities and everything else. One of the first persons that sort of touched on that, but doesn't touch on it very often, is actually, say again, Boko no Dafoji, Daniel, because with his ancestor, his ancestor in different ceremonies has been witness to spirits that come from other planets. In other words, spirits that come from other planets come to deliver a message or make themselves manifest, number one. Number two is hidden in many of the corpuses and many of the stories, Itan, Esevifa, and everything else. There is an underlying concept of two types of divinity. The divinities which were of the earth, in other words, that were of the terrestrial plane, and what they would call celestials, right? And to the point where many times, again, you often state that the gods, the original, are really the celestial god, are the planets, and their spirituality that they're imbued with, and the consciousness they're imbued with. You talk about people from Venus, you talk about people from Andromeda. In other words, these are essentially as infinite constellation, infinite planet, infinite, but as infinite as the spirit world is. Spirit world is not just the collection of, as we talked about, the honored dead or family members that have or passed away. We're talking about different spirit. There is a I forget his name. There's a Bokono in Togo, which is, he speaks French. He has a very interesting take where he basically he describes that the Odus of Ifa, the 256 Odus of Ifa, but especially the 16 princes of Ifa, which are the dual, like Ejobe, Oyikume, Worime, Odime, all the way down, that they're in fact planets, and that they're Omolu. In other words, the other combination of the Odus represents the constellation. In other words, the planets or bodies that surround that one planet or that one main star, if you will. He calls them stars, not planets, but stars. So the Odu Mei are the stars, and the Omolu are the essentially are the little planets and all that surround it. And when you look at that commonality, it's interesting that a lot of that knowledge comes in terms of Ifa, comes in from the Afa, Vodunfa, Fon Ewe people, right? Which have definitely influences from Mesopotamia, from Egypt, from the Phoenicians, from different regions, even from other shamanic localities towards the east. But when you look at it that way, and you describe, if you look at the Mei, which we know Ifa, the Meis are not just a sign, but they represent a consciousness, a spirit in themselves. There's a story that was mentioned by Christopher Vokujuvi from African Magic Temple in Ghana, and they talked about and paid their respects to an old Bokor, which is an old priest, which was medium, blind, and basically, though, who, without being formally initiated to being a bokor, without formally being initiated into the mysteries of Fa, could consult a person and receive messages from what he described were the spirits of Fa. In other words, the Odus representing spiritual messages coming to him, and he would describe it, and those spirits would speak to him, and he would describe the situation of the person, because within them, within that codex of those spirits, was the messages and that they basically told this full story. So when you look at it in those ways, and I cannot, for reasons of privacy, divulge the name, but Teresa and I know a very, very extraordinarily bright young man, extraordinarily bright, an absolute computer whiz, very spiritually gifted, and as well, although he was a man of silence, but very spiritually gifted. And that young man receives messages from other planets. In other words, and you'd say it's a question of psychosis, a question of some form of paranoia or something that the person is some sort of mental illness. But the interesting thing is that when he talks about those messages that he apparently gets from another, and he basically received, and I can't go into too much detail, otherwise I may divulge inadvertently his identity. But let's just say he's one of the brightest young men in computing I've ever met in my life.
Nice.
And he has credentials to basically get. He's a genius. And but the interesting thing, those messages he received, when he actually speaks them, were corroborated by Boko no Dafuji. And during a consultation, which he didn't know anything about the history or the background of this young man, and Boko no Dafuji said, this person receives this, and this messages, and they're not coming from spirits within our immediate galaxy or immediate world. They're coming from another planet. And to the point where the young man was completely blown away that, to have that, although he knew the messages and the thing to be true, it was, again, looking for that confirmation or affirmation. Did you see that? Did you see that moment? Right? And so I can say it's very interesting that, and especially interesting that it's only in the last 3-4 years that myself personally, I'm increasingly being exposed to people having that type of spiritual connection and discernment to know that the spirit, the message, what is it, is not from this realm, let's say, or this planet, or this galaxy even. It comes from another dimension, another galaxy, whatever term you want to use. But that definitely, and again, the proof is in the pudding, because if the message is sound, and if the message is on point, and if there was no way you could possibly have known that information, right? Or you can give advertisements of celestial events or celestial things that are then confirmed by astronomers or astrophysicists.
100%.
You could be skeptical, but it's like, all right.
And for me, I had also my granddaughters. I have 5 grandchildren. They're all connected to spirit. 2 of them have explained that they go to the moon at nighttime. They go because they don't live beside each other. One lives in one province, one lives in the other. My 2 granddaughters, they meet on the moon at night. She was 5 years old and she was looking out at the full moon, and she said to her mom, she goes, I'm going to see my cousin tonight. And she's like, what do you mean you're going to go see your cousin? She goes, yeah, we're going to go to the moon. We used to live on the moon. We live in the back of the moon. That's where we used to live, inside the moon. And she was 5. She's telling her mom that. And and then my other granddaughter, she was telling me that she wants to meet the ETs. And at one point my daughter called me panicking because she's like, Mom, there's something going on. Can you please check in my property? And when I checked in, there were 3 of them waiting at the property line because they have to be invited in. They won't come in. Again, universal law, right? And they
Okay.
were waiting to be invited in because my granddaughter kept asking them to come. But because she was too little,
Interesting.
they had to have the permission from the mother or the father. And when I
Interesting.
stepped in and I said no, and I said to my daughter, you need to tell them to go away because it's your property. You need to tell them to go away. And they
Mhm.
left and they never returned since. But it's
Interesting.
there's so much more
It's a
to
Absolutely.
the
fascinating
world.
world, you know, if we open our minds.
Yeah. And to me, I said this to another friend of mine. I said the spirituality today, it feels like we're leaving the Catholic Church and we're jumping into the spirituality again, and the spirituality being controlled again as no, this is not acceptable. This is not happening. This can never happen because this is how it's going to be. And I'm like, we're
No,
going through the same thing again in a different way.
absolutely.
Controlled, but there's so much more to everything.
Absolutely. I totally get that. And I can't stand when I get restrictions. You know, being told I can't do this or not to do that or what. Yeah,
So
it just
let
doesn't.
me ask you a very this may be it's a difficult question, but
Okay.
it's knowing what you know and seeing what you see and
Mhm.
having the foresight and the ability to see things at a like a direct level. How do you describe and how do you view, for instance, the Catholic belief system? How do you view the belief in Jesus? How do you view the belief in Jesus Christ, in the concept of saints, in the concept of archangels? How do you for the same reason, right? Because your ability to see outside of those confines allows you to see with it from a different view or dynamic, which others can't see. But by the same token, when you use terms and descriptors and modalities that are inside a belief system like Catholicism,
Mhm.
you're inherently once again sort of under that sort of squeeze. So
Yeah.
how do you let's start at the most basic belief. How do you see the concept of Jesus Christ, for instance, from a spiritual? Have you ever had an
My
experience
buddy,
with that spirit? Your
my buddy,
buddy?
my
Okay.
buddy Joshua, he doesn't like to be called Jesus, first of all. His name is Joshua. He was married. He traveled the world. He went to India. That's where he learned to meditate. That's when he came back, and he was trying to tell people to live outside of your mind, outside of your belief system. Don't let people dictate what you need to do for you. Feel and believe
From
that,
your heart.
yeah, and that to me. Do you know there's a book out there that's called When God Had a Wife? You should look into
No,
that.
I did not know that.
Very
Interesting.
interesting book. Um,
Well, and that touches upon, sorry for interrupting, and that kind of is the cornerstone, I think, for a lot of belief systems, in that the Almighty, and again, we're going to talk about the duality, that the Almighty is a male and male only. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't want to direct your thought form, but it just, before it leaves my
no, but
head.
that was a way of controlling people. You control people by telling them that they can only worship someone who's holy. What is holy? What is holy? Period. To me, it's like somebody says, "Oh, you have to be normal." Describe to me what's normal. Nobody can, because it's like, what is normal? So to me, it's what is holy? Everybody has. We talked about duality. We all have duality. And to me, Jesus was just a regular person who they took his words and twisted it and used it for their own gain.
Yes.
And, they made believe that he was single because he was holy, supposedly, whatever that means, that he was not married, to control.
Boys club. Again, it's always about the boys club, right?
But, to me, is the church did a lot of harm. And it's not the church itself. It's the people that run the church. So don't get me wrong. I love the churches. When I go to Italy, I love to go in it.
Me too.
I love the atmosphere that comes with it.
I do too.
But it's the people that run it that are corrupted.
Priesthood. It's
right?
the priesthood.
And that's where it comes from. To me, that is corrupt. And that's where I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I agree with you, in that sense too. And I know Jean-Jerome knows of my own experience and how I view Christ, right? It's a consciousness. It really is a consciousness.
He is funny as heck. He is funny because he usually comes in my meditation. I've had quite a bit of interaction with him. He's quite funny, and he said, to me, he always says, "Don't believe everything you hear." I was not who they say I was. And
I had a dream about him, and the way he showed himself to me, he has a great sense of humor.
Yeah. He has. But I can still see this one vision that he showed me. It was, I was sitting on a bench in a meditation. I was sitting on a bench, and he jumped up on the bench and squatted down on his feet on the bench. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?" And he's like sort of picking on me. And it's like, okay, just, yeah. So to me, it's Jesus was a person.
Oh, her screen has frozen again.
Yes.
We'll wait till she comes back, but I think I know what she means. Yes, he was a person, a real live person. I believe his consciousness and his energy still exist.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we can tap into. But I'll let Carmela come back and talk and finish her discussion on that. So Jean-Jerome, talk to me. What's your next question?
What's my next question? My next question, there was a lot of questions or more information on Carmela's cat. That story she told about the cat, and like people are asking a little bit more about the cat and the relationship with the death of the horse. To understand what was the cat, it was the cat, in a sense, in possessed by a spirit, but how could the cat provide that message, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did she interpret that after the fact? Because maybe at that age, she couldn't interpret it, right? But now, how does she interpret that? That was a question that was posed by Essie and a few other people, and Sue Masters Orion said that was Carmela's cat Gabriel. So I'm curious to see what that. And then Essie
was Carmela's current cat Gabriel that did that? No,
I guess that was her cat Gabriel at the time.
Okay, well, we can check back with her on that because I'm a little confused.
People are intrigued by that cat story.
Okay.
And then Essie Mike has just an anecdote and early history of the Greece. Only females priestesses could sit on the tripod over fumes that would put them in a trance. Interesting enough, while they were in a trance, they would drink water because they would feel dehydrated. While they spoke in tongues or a language only a priest could discern. You mentioned water and tongues. There seems to be some connection with what you mentioned. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Oh,
You keep
sorry.
hearing
So Sue
Oh.
says, Sue Masters Ryan, sorry, her current cat is Gabriel.
Oh, he was
He was
meowing.
meowing. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
But
Right.
people, I think, are. So, Sue, if you're listening to this, I think people, Nancy was curious about the cat, the story about the cat and the horse scenario.
Okay.
So
Because I was going to
that's
say, my cats are quite active. They're in their room so that they can behave themselves. Otherwise, they'd be jumping all over. I have to put my cats away. So if you hear cats meowing, it could be mine too, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, is she coming
Vienna
back?
says,
No. Water is the universal conduct. Yes, thank you,
Conduit.
Vianney. It is. It definitely is.
as she's laughing.
So hopefully she comes back and we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, I think
on
her
this.
internet is trying to reestablish.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're coming close to the 2-hour mark, so we can maybe, if anybody has any questions if anybody like to ask Carmela a question. One viewer, Ron Carol Prue, said, "I would love any message if there's any to be given to me. Thank you." So Ron, Carol, I am not sure. Like, we don't usually do that during this show, but I will.
We can definitely pose it to
We will
Carmela
pose
and
it to
see.
Carmela and see if she's up to it. If
Yeah.
not, then we'll again be displaying how to contact her on our website, and perhaps
Yes,
you can seek a
absolutely.
private.
Absolutely. We will be doing that. And
Oh, yeah.
my
No, she
real
doesn't feel
question,
thirsty.
does she always feel thirsty when she falls? I think so. Essay. That's what she says. That's how she knows when she's going to get messages. Because when we were speaking privately, she's back.
So you're just in time to answer the question. Do you always feel thirsty when you fall into a trance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier in our private conversation as well. So Carmela, and Ron Carroll. Now, okay, before we get into this question, how comfortable do you feel about people wanting to know if there's a message for them? Do you feel up to it? We don't normally do that on our show, but Ron had asked. So
It's actually the first time somebody's requested that.
yeah.
So that's why I'm only entertaining. This is the first time somebody's asked one of our guests if there's a message for them. So I don't want to dismiss it without giving you the option to either defer it or to.
Right now, I'm a little bit too
In the moment. Yeah, I understand.
Right.
So,
yeah, we don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
and again, you have to feel comfortable. And like I said, we don't do that on our show.
Ron says that's no problem. I will contact Carmela.
I feel
absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry, 1 second. With Ron, I feel something with the heart. So I'm not sure if he's just sadness. He's feeling sadness about something. That's what I'm picking up. But yeah, I'm just feeling the sad in the heart. So I can't expand on that. They won't give me anything else. So we're just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. Best at a private, consultation, or maybe something.
Yeah.
That's
something
private
that
to be conveyed.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
That he can connect with you privately on that. But just to sort of come back to the original question that Jean-Jerome had in regards to how do you view Catholicism in your own view, and we got to talking about how you see Jesus and your connection with him, and I just sort of gave my little antidote on how I connect with him. Is there something else you kind of wanted to finish off and say about that, Carmela?
I always connect, for me, I grew up Catholic because that's what we used back home. We were Catholic and that's where I grew up. My
Right.
kids are grown up Catholic. Um, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe in the angels. I believe in many other things. Like I said, everything exists through energy.
Absolutely.
I've
We
had, I've
don't
had,
have to restrict ourselves.
yeah, and I've had the experience of. We've had this conversation when I was going a few years back. This is about 7 years ago, roughly about 6, 7 years ago. I was really, really depressed and I was going through a really rough time in my life. And I had started drinking a bit. But I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of this depression. I couldn't get out of this. And I would always constantly say, please help me. God, please help me. And one day I remember I was driving and I was going to the bookstore to pick up some books for my granddaughter. And I remember driving and asking, crying and saying, please, God, take me. I'm done. I'm done. Please take me. And I went to the bookstore and I picked up a couple of things for the kids. And I walked around the metaphysics store and I picked up a Doreen Virtue angel book, Learn to Say No, because that was my thing. I couldn't say no to anyone. And I was on my knees looking on the bottom shelf of other books. And I see this man walking. He had jeans on, old pair of jeans. And he was a medium built, like medium tall. He had this wine color shirt tucked in, but it was puffy around here, just above the belt. And he had curly, short, black hair. I don't remember anything else pretty much. His eyes were different. And he looked at the book and he looked at me, looked at the books, looked at me, and then he's like, what do you got there? And verbal blurbs come out of me. And blah, 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 I belong to this church and you need to come and this and that and that and that. I have the book. This is what, to help me say no and this and that. And all of a sudden he just kind of leaned over a little bit and my face dropped. And it's like, yes. I'm like, no. And it's like, no, yes, tell me. I'm like, no, I don't want to tell you. And it's like, no, tell me. And I said, okay, I just saw a massive wing behind you. And it wasn't white. That's what struck me. It wasn't white. It was gray, light gray, and a little dark gray. I can still see it. It was like high above his shoulder and then massive coming down. And without a beat, he's like, just acknowledged it and start speaking of what he was telling me. And he told me all these things. Told me that I didn't need the book because you don't need the book. And he told me a couple of other things I needed to do. Told me a few things that I would do. And then we said goodbye. And as we passed by, I turned to him and I said, thank you, Archangel Michael. And he's acknowledged and left. And I went around the corner and just cried.
I was just going to say that struck me very much because my experience with him too, because people are always thinking, wings have to be white. Yeah. Not the one in my dreams. He was big and bird-like at one point, and then back to being someone I recognized from my past. But the wings were gray.
Yeah. And that, I looked for him and I couldn't find him. And I ran into my car and I called my daughter and I bawled. And my daughter said, oh my God, she cried. She's like, Mom, you have to call my friend because she was going through a rough time. So I called her friend. She cried. And I came home and I sat at the edge of my couch waiting for my husband to walk through that door. And I called him. I'm like, come and sit here. I have to tell you what happened to me. And I told him, and he cried, and he's not a crier. He cried, and he looked at me and he said, you wouldn't believe the day that I had today.
Hmm.
But the main thing that I remember is walking out of that store, and just like a cloud had lifted, all my anxiety, all my stress, all my, whatever I was going through had gone, had lifted. I had not touched a drink since that day, here and there afterwards, occasionally. But it was like everything was just cleared. It was amazing. Yeah.
No, angels do walk amongst us. They really do.
They manifest in front of us for us people.
My mother had that happen to her, and I'm not going to get into the story, but one day you and I, Carmela, I will tell you, when for that luncheon date that we keep canceling.
Yes. we need
the perpetual
lunch date now.
So we're
anyway, Jean-Jerome.
we're almost at the
2-hour mark.
The 2-hour mark. Ron Carroll says, "Thank you for
Questions?
sharing those amazing stories. Carmela is an amazing soul."
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ron, for those comments. I think, in the interest of time, because we're close to the 2-hour mark, Carmela, did you give thought to a quote or a life quote that summarizes your life philosophy or your view of life?
Well, there's always a quote that I have written down on my cards, basically, and it says, "Love and forgive yourself first. Only then can you reach your true potential."
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That
was straight from the heart.
You don't love yourself and you don't forgive yourself, because we can blame ourselves for a lot of things as human beings.
Absolutely.
Well, Carmela,
sure.
It's been an immense pleasure. It's been a very, very enjoyable experience, and I only wish you long life and good health for you and your family. And may your gift continue to grow in health and many, many blessings.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my experiences, my thoughts, my feelings.
Thank you for sharing.
I have never felt really that comfortable as I'm feeling with the two of you to share publicly. Like, I mean, I shared it, but just publicly. And this is, that's the true me and what I know and the experience that I grew up with.
And that's one of the things we loved about when I first met you earlier this week is your authenticity. And we were talking about, being down to earth and being authentic. You call it the way you see it. You describe it from a place of truth, a place of sincerity. And again, sort of a deep-rooted knowledge that's been inherited, passed on, and worked with for years. So that's a wonderful gift for just for your family and yourself, but for humanity. And we hope that through the show,
absolutely,
again, our goal is that all these ancestral spiritual guys that work through us in different modalities, different traditions, different cultures. We're basically globe-trotting. We're going from one part of the globe to the other, and but at the end, there's you see the commonalities in terms of the beauty of spirit and the desire to heal, the desire to bring forth truth, the concept of liberation, freedom, of being forgiveness, as you said, to forgive yourself so you can be, and of being able to say no. The ability of being able to say no, as you mentioned,
that's a hard one.
That sometimes even in spiritual practices, people have to know that if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right.
Isn't right.
That's right. And that's what I wanted to leave the audience with. Really tune into your body, to your gut feeling. Your gut feeling will never lie to you. Your gut and I always say, it's like your modem, you know.
Exactly.
Listen to that, and tune into your heart and your gut. Your heart is the middle, the first organ. This is,
Okana. Yeah.
you know, this is from ego. It's from thoughts that sometimes they're not even yours. They're influenced, sometimes not by the good. You know, we have to tune in here if it feels right. Does it feel right? Does it feel light? Does it feel easy? Does it feel relaxed? Because if it doesn't, and your gut's tight and it's turning a little bit and it's tight and squeezing, run.
Well, in Yoruba cosmology and anatomy, spiritual anatomy, the gut, what we call the gut, is where we have ori inu, our inner spirit, our inner mind, resides in the gut,
Your
and it is
son.
exactly, and it accompanied by your okanran is very important. Your feelings, emotions, right, and the warnings that those feelings, emotions. If you feel anger, fear, things that is usually a warning that something is not right. And then ori, your main ori, which is your soul, where your soul sits, right? So and your joto and your back of your neck. So all these spiritualities, sort of give you a little wording.
We call this the halo.
The hello.
When you get the halo,
Uh-huh.
you've reached your highest gift.
The halo, like the saints.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank all our viewers and everybody tuning in, and for your questions, comments. But as you know, I would be remiss without saying a special shout out to one of our most loyal viewers, Mojo, our show mascot, who has religiously been watching our show for weeks. He even got his sister in the act
Oh my goodness.
to watch the show. And Mojo he's like our most faithful viewer. Always tunes in.
Mojo used to be a king.
Little Mojo and Titi, his sister.
That's right.
Do you know that Mojo used to be a king?
Really?
Mojo?
Yeah.
King Mojo? That little guy?
Well, he wasn't Mojo then, but
Did you hear that, Beth? Carmela,
I love that.
Ask if he's finicky with the food.
Okay. All right. I will definitely ask Beth.
Yeah,
I'll pass the message on. Beth, if you're listening, tune in and just let us know. Is he finicky as an eater, or is he a gobble guts?
Yeah. Interesting to know.
Yes.
Awesome.
So I want to say to you, Carmela, thank you so much for coming on board. I was thrilled that you got to come on our show and to be able to talk to us openly the way you have, and to be able to connect with you. And I wanted to thank all the guests that tune in all the time, every week, to listen to us. And I just wanted to say he loves you. Oh, Beth says he loves you. That's so cute.
He's the king of this house.
He's the king of this house.
He eats everything.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because sometimes I get the feeling that he was picky with the food because there's certain food that it's below him.
But Titi Laye is a famous corn thief. She snatches the corn on the cob.
Oh, that's for sure. I've seen her. We've seen pictures of her doing that. They're both very sweet cats. I got a chance to actually meet them.
We're divulging all your kitty secrets there, Beth.
So anyway, I just want to say a final goodbye to Carmela, and thank you, Jean-Jerome, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. And by the way, just thought I'd mention there's these witchy awards. I think I posted it on Ancestral Eyes group and on Ancestral Eyes, and I think Consejo. And I just came to learn of this witchy awards, and there's a subject there, and I'm reaching out to our audience members just for, you know, shits and giggles and giving us a chance to say that, you know, bragging rights as new podcasters to be nominated. So I'm just throwing it out there. If anyone's listening, if you want to nominate Ancestral Eyes as a new podcast show for the new Witchy Awards, we'll put that back on our Ancestral Eyes. Feel free to do so. I'm plugging us shamelessly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So anyway, so I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you once again to Carmela. Thank you to Jean-Jerome, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. I thank your ancestral spirits that have tuned in as well, because every show I always I cast a special circle and I ask for the ancestral guides of Jean-Jerome, of our guest, and all those who tune in, all their ancestral guides to be outside that circle, but they're welcome. Okay, so I bid everyone a good night. Have a good weekend and stay safe, everyone. All right.
Thank you,
Take
Carmela,
care,
again.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank
Jerome,
you.
and thank you, Teresa. It was a blessing being here. So blessing
Yes,
to everyone,
thank you.
and stay safe. Yes.
All right.